better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today.
They're following a major story out of the Philippines. A major storm, a super typhoon barreling.
Malubha ang pinsalang dala ng super bagyong Yolanda. Mistulang dagat na inaanod ang lahat ng madadaanan nito.
It is a miserable situation here, and it does not seem to be getting better day by day.
Destruction, death, catastrophe. Thousands of lives lost, homes gone in hours. These are scenes captured last November 8, 2013 in eastern, central, and western Visayas, the day the Typhoon Yolanda hit the Philippines, leaving everyone in shock. A number of environmental planners started communicating with each other to begin rescue and emergency efforts. Dr. Nathaniel Vine Einsidel, a former president of the Philippine Institute of Environmental Planners, or PIEP, recommended that the PIEP volunteers' assistance be in the form of expertise of environmental planners in post-disaster rehabilitation and recovery planning. A few days after, a task force was created. In January 13, 2014, the task force adopts the name Alliance for Safe and Sustainable Reconstruction, or ASSURE, whose main purpose was to provide an organizational structure for extending the voluntary technical assistance to the cities and towns affected by Typhoon Yolanda. It is a non-profit organization with membership open not only to environmental planners, but also to other related professionals. Dr. Andreas Lange of the German International Assistance Agency, or GIZ, invited ASSURE to its annual planning workshop in Baybay, Leyte for ASSURE to get a better feel of the extent of damage brought by Yolanda and discuss possible collaboration between GIZ and ASSURE. This partnership grew stronger as their roles became clearer. 16 local government units from Leyte and Eastern Samar, all victims of Yolanda, were invited to participate. After presenting their initial assessment, their requirements surfaced as huge and daunting. These brave volunteers knew they were up for a difficult challenge, but one that was worth it. From then on, ASSURE carried out other prominent projects along with other donor organizations, such as a comprehensive assessment of the post-disaster rehabilitation needs of Homonhon and Manicani Islands, preparation of the Tacloban Recovery and Rehabilitation Plan, technical advice and support to city competition teams for their entries to the Liveable Cities Design Challenge, among others. After various missions and projects, ASSURE has emerged as one of the major players in the rehabilitation and recovery efforts for cities and towns damaged by Typhoon Yolanda. ASSURE was born out of the realization that professional assistance to the devastated towns and cities is most critical and urgent. But what may be even more significant is that Assure has served as a channel for volunteer environmental planners, economists, social development experts, architects, engineers, and other related professions to share their time and expertise to help rebuild the lives of Yolanda's victims. Every effort exerted and every time consumed in each project provide fulfilling and exciting memories, all worth 1,000 lives restored. You are part of us. Share our stories.
A better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today.
Good afternoon, mayors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our 16th Livable Cities Lab, brought to you in partnership with the League of Cities and Globe Telecom. We are particularly pleased to be joined today by the Urban Land Institute, represented here by its chair, Jean De Castro, as a partner in developing today's program. This is a topic we both care about. Today, 52 million Filipinos, or around half of the Philippine population, live in cities. This is 6.5 times an increase from 1960, when just 8 million, or 30% of the country's population, lived in urban areas. By 2050, the United Nations estimates that 68% of the world's population could be living in cities. According to the World Bank, cities consume two-thirds of global energy production and account for more than 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. With more people living in cities than ever before, rapid urbanization creates huge challenges on vital resources such as food, water, and energy, as well as raises concerns about congestion, waste management, and pollution. The questions are: can we have densely populated Philippine cities that also provide good connectivity, integrated transportation systems, efficient public services, and green open spaces? How can finite resources, such as land, be used more productively for buildings, mobility, and open spaces? How can we build more energy efficient buildings and homes? During this Livable Cities Lab today, we will be sharing initiatives, plans, and actions on how green buildings and open spaces can help transform cities, address their environmental footprint, and adjust modern life for a more sustainable and livable future. We will be joined by a distinguished panel of speakers and experts: Paulo Alcazaran, environmental planner and landscape architect; Nikki von Einsiedel, president of the Alliance for Safe, Sustainable, and Resilient Environments; Mayor Jerry Chanias of Iloilo City; Kathy Saldana, managing director and CEO of PDP Architects. We'll also be joined by Jean De Castro of Urban Land Institute and Mitch Ora of Globe Telecom. So thank you for joining us today and spending the afternoon with us, and we look forward to your participation in today's event. Now let me turn you over to Sui Suarez, our moderator for this afternoon's lab. Sui is one of the co-founders and core team members of Livable Cities Challenge Philippines. He is an energy and industry professional with 25 years of experience in communications, corporate social responsibility, commercial oil products businesses, and project management at Shell. He led the global communications campaign on the future of energy at Shell International and was a member of the Shell Scenario Reports on the global economy and environment. Let us please welcome Sui Suarez. Let me turn everything over to you, Sui.
Thank you, Bill, for the kind introduction, and welcome everyone to the Livable Cities webinar on green buildings and open spaces. Before we begin, let us review a few safety reminders. First, be aware of your surroundings while the webinar is ongoing in case you need to stop due to an emergency. And second, please always stay safe and practice social distancing if you are out of your home. Furthermore, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Livable Cities Facebook page. Questions may be asked in the Zoom Q&A chat box. So Zoom has a feature that allows the audience to vote for questions posted by others by clicking on the thumbs up icon next to the question. And the question with the most votes will rise to the top of the list so that some of these will be answered directly by our speakers and their staff in the chat box, while other questions may be parked for later on in the open forum. If you are joining the webinar on Facebook, you may place your questions in the comments section of Facebook. Finally, at the end of the webinar, we will invite you to please fill up our feedback survey because your response will help us improve our Livable Cities Lab series. You may also get a certificate of participation by answering the corresponding question in the survey. So currently, let me just take a look. There are about 240 people joining us in this webinar on Zoom and about 12 people or so in Facebook Live. Thank you all for spending your afternoon with us in the Livable Cities Lab. To get our program going, I'd like to ask a question so that we can find out where you are this afternoon. So if you can ask our staff to bring up our poll question, and this is the question: where are you joining us from? So we have 4 buttons here. Just put your pointer there and choose one of these 4 buttons, either Metro Manila, the rest of Luzon, Visayas, or Mindanao, so that we can find out where we are this afternoon. So please do that now. And we have roughly about 46, almost half are from Metro Manila, about a third from the rest of Luzon, and then about another third, I think, roughly, coming from Visayas and Mindanao. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us today. So let's kick off today's webinar by introducing our first speaker, Mr. Paulo Alcazaran. So Paulo is an environmental planner, landscape architect, and head of PGAA Creative Design Manila. He has been involved in urban design and landscape architecture projects in over a dozen countries in Asia for the past 38 years, with 12 years of those based in Singapore as managing director of PDAA Design Pte. Limited. Paulo is the recipient of several awards in urban design and landscape architecture from the Philippines and Southeast Asia. In 2016, he won the Cultural Center of the Philippines Gawad para sa Sining Award for Architecture and Allied Arts. He is also a writer and journalist with several books and publications to his credit. He pens a regular column at the Philippine Star on architecture, heritage, urbanism, and design. His advocacies are in heritage conservation, green cities, and bringing back open space and sidewalks to our cities. To discuss open and green spaces in the Philippines, I'd like to welcome back to our Livable Cities Lab series, Mr. Paulo Alcazaran. Sir Paulo.
Thank you, Sui, and good afternoon.
Magandang hapon. On to you, sir.
Thank you, Sui, and good afternoon to everyone. And I'd like to first thank Livable Cities Lab, the Urban Land Institute and Globe for hosting this event and for allowing me to share with everyone. So let me share my screen. So this afternoon, I'd like to share a short talk on open and green spaces in the Philippines. And this is a shot of what constitutes a lot of our towns and cities today. Informal settlements and a lack of planning has led to definitely a dearth of open and green spaces in our country. But before we go to that, we have to have an outlook of what we need to plan and actually build in the post-pandemic years, and that is housing, hospitals, mobility, and green and open spaces. And I hope everyone's registered to vote next year. And please don't vote for anyone who don't have, or parties who don't have this in their agenda for a post-pandemic Philippines. I will focus, of course, on green and open spaces, but we have to touch on the first three because they're all important aspects of our urban futures. Housing, especially because the vectors of disease can spread very quickly if we don't provide shelter for everyone, especially informal settlements, which constitute 20 to 30% of all of our towns and cities. And that, along with the lower end of our shelter requirements, gives us a housing backlog of 5 to 6 million units nationwide. In context, Singapore and Hong Kong, both of them have built close to 1 million housing units since the 1960s, all supported by public transport utilities, health infrastructure with access to market, schools, public open spaces, and parks, benefiting from good planning. So to put it in context, the Philippines needs to build 6 times what, say, Singapore has built in the last 40 years tomorrow just to catch up. That's the scale of the challenge we have post-pandemic. And similarly in hospitals in both cities compared to, say, Metro Manila, where our tertiary hospitals serving 12.8 million population are not centrally located close to public transit. We have to look at health infrastructure as a key component of our urban development from now on. So Philippine cities are dense and provide very little room to breathe. Few parks have been built in the last 60 years. Although Dinky and I are involved in the Parks and Open Space program for New Clark City, and that's the first large parks and park networks that will be built in this last 60 years. Metro Manila is 613 square kilometers, about the same size as Singapore, with 12.8 million residents. And obviously, there's a lack of parks and open space. The same is true for other metro areas like Metro Davao. This is Metro Cebu with 2.8 million in the metro area. Few parks and isolated open spaces. I mean, these aerial photographs don't lie, because you can easily see what other cities have in terms of green and open space. New York has a Central Park that's 315 hectares, or close to 5 times the size of Rizal Park, serving only 8.5 million residents compared to our 12.8. But New York City, for those of you who know or lived in any of the other 4 boroughs, has over 2,000 hectares more of a park system that gives New Yorkers access to a park very close to them. In Singapore, it's the same thing. Singapore, in the central area alone, has 101 hectares gardens by the bay, again, serving only 5.7 million compared to the South Park, which serves 12.8. So the proportion of open space to citizens in a metro area, Singapore has 320 parks, 2,500 hectares, along with park corridors and civic open spaces. We designed a number of those connectors, so eventually you can cross the whole island without having to go over a street by walking, jogging, or biking. So Singaporeans have about 60 square meters of public parks and open spaces, PPOS, per person. Metro Manila, with 200 hectares of usable and publicly accessible parks, has only about 1 square meter, while Metro Cebu is even smaller, 0.1 square meter public parks and open space per person. The goal is really to provide the minimum required by the World Health Organization of 9 square meters public parks and open spaces, and using that metric, we need in Metro Manila alone 1,800 hectares more publicly accessible, designed, and well-maintained parks and open spaces to achieve that target. That's the challenge we have post-pandemic. So we had planned for parks and public spaces since the Spanish colonial era, with the loss of the Indies and the requirements for plazas, which were the locus of our social and recreational needs until the 19th century and 20th century. With the coming of the Americans and Daniel Burnham, the plan for Manila actually had 4 large parks, none of which were ever fully built, in Harrison, in Sampaloc, in Santa Ana, and in Tondo. Early in the American period, they passed an act, 1915, for monuments, as well as the development plans for parks and plazas, and over 137 parks and plaza schemes were designed and built in the American period. So in the American and Commonwealth period, parks and plazas were in the consciousness of Filipinos, and Filipino kids were taught the importance of this in civics. And this is a quote from 1932 textbook of a 6th grader. Many towns have beautified their plazas, other towns have neglected their plaza, and they have left their plazas to pigs, goats, and other domestic animals. The people of such towns are judged to be more backward than those who pay attention to their plazas. Monuments, well taken care of, add to the beauty of the town, but when they are badly neglected, they're what is called an eyesore. So we were shamed to create public space in the old days. And in the post-war period, we still tried to plan for open parks, open space and a park system. This is the 1955-56 iteration of the plan for the new capital in the post-independence era by the National Planning Commission, that shows that we were supposed to have a 400-hectare national central park in what is now known as the Diliman Quadrangle, defined by East and West Avenues, North and South Avenues. Unfortunately, none of this park was ever built, along with the entire Marikina Valley to be conserved as open green space, because they knew as early as 1947 that the fault line was there, and it was not smart to build anything in that area. Unfortunately, people have not listened to planners, did not listen to planners in the 1950s, and until today, we are a fairly marginalized group. So one of the other things that we've forgotten how to do is, aside from creating parks and plazas, is creating the settings for the monuments of the heroes we want to valorize. In the 1910s, we had good settings in terms of plazas, 1 or just 2 monuments per large plaza. In the 1960s, they became smaller with triangles or traffic intersections, while in the 1910s, just in the recent few decades, most of our statues have been erected in traffic islands and you don't see them. So this was the last good public open space that we designed, which was completed in 1975, the elliptical circle in Quezon City with the Quezon Memorial. But what we have today are things like this, which is the memorial to CP Garcia, after whom C5 is named, and this is located right in the middle of C5. Very hard to access. I almost got into an accident just trying to reach there, and obviously there's a lack of budget and aesthetics. Only the bust was built, and underneath there are 8 more statues of questionable aesthetic quality underneath. So we really need to recover our aesthetics as well as the old ways of building parks and plazas, which should be really accessible by walking and to most of the places where people live, not in the middle of highways. And in the last administration, we were asked to look at Rojas Boulevard. We found Rojas waiting for his grab. And you don't do this. This is not done. If you go to other cities in other countries in the world, you don't just put your heroes on the side or marginalize them. We were able to design for the Baywalk, which is this, including the engineering interventions to absorb the surge energy of the water coming over. But we also importantly designed for segregated bikeways and walkways and the pedestrian public realm, along with the provision of piazzas for all of those heroes and people we meant to valorize here at CP Garcia. I'm sorry, Carlos P. Garcia, which is Carlos P. Romulo, I'm sorry, which we provided with his own piazza. So we continue the Baywalk into the CCP and the Esplanade. This is the first linear park for Manila. It's fairly well maintained, and the Baywalk under Mayor Moreno is also now better maintained. And these amenities are available to the public and accessible. So we were also involved in the last administration in the master plan for Rizal Park. Unfortunately, the 1.5 billion pesos that we needed to make over the park to make it more functional as a public park for the 12.8 million, we were not able to get funding. Only about 250 million was provided, and so none of the integration with the Intramuros green area, as well as the connection to across the Pasig with pedestrian bridges, was ever built. And hopefully in the future something more funding can be put into the Rizal Park and Open Space Network. But we were able to, in the last decade or so, give unsolicited proposals for other parks and plazas in Metro Manila and the country, like this for San Sebastian, where it shows that in a lot of our public plazas, the spaces have been usurped by vehicles. The Bilibid Viejo is a paved over street in concrete, and this is our proposal to recover plaza for people, which is possible without compromising the throughput of the jeepneys that pass through, which uses all of this concrete. And this is one of the reasons why the urban heat island effect affects a lot of our metro areas, is because of the amount of concrete that we pour on our cities. And our intervention is this: to recover a public plaza, to make it a space for people, and to bring in more trees and vegetation. So these are some more unsolicited and solicited ideas for improvements, part of a package with other consultants with the current mayor in Manila for a linear park on both sides of the river, parts of which are not now being completed, and by the Escolta. And even the esteros, hopefully once they get permanently addressed and the problems of pollution in the esteros are addressed, what can happen is this. And hopefully in the near future, we're able to have our lattes, sipping our lattes by the estero along with with our hopia. So BGC, we were involved in the CBDs of BGC Makati and Ortigas for improvements of pedestrian and open space systems as consultants to the associations and to the cities there. This is the BGC Greenway, a ULI, and a Makati Rotary project, which is a 1.4 kilometer linear parkway that we did with another firm, Criaris, and this has been partially completed. It's the old Meralco easement behind the tall condos, and hopefully the whole system will be completed by next year. And in Singapore, where I was based for over a decade, we were able to, as Filipino consultants, really landscape architects, we were able to participate in a lot of parks for the National Parks Board in Singapore. A number of them bucket parks like this, Ansham Hill in Chinatown, which is also a park connector between one side of Chinatown to the other. And I designed this 20 years ago, and it's a testimony to how well they maintain their parks. Is that when I visited recently, it's almost exactly as we designed it, and it's very well maintained and kept. So maintenance is really 90% of the success of design landscapes and cityscapes, and we have to focus our energies on that too. This is Telokayar Green, also in Chinatown, which has historical components. We researched historical vignettes from Singapore's history and put them as public art in these spaces. So we were also able to design larger open spaces in Singapore, Hindhede Nature Park, and again, very well maintained. And in the last 15 years or so, it's roughly the same as when we designed it. And then Hong Kong Town Open Space Network, this is a Housing Development Board estate, and it was meant to be connected, all of the open spaces by a pedestrian network, which is par for the course for almost all of the HDB estates in Singapore's heartland. And this is public housing, but they knew it was important to provide open space for all of this housing developments. You had high density, medium rise and high rise developments, but it is counterparted by open space at the ground level. And of course, back in the Philippines, we were involved in Pasig City, where we reconfigured the public open space. This is Rizal Plaza, which we found to be he was pointing in the wrong direction at McDonald's. So we moved him back to his original position, integrated the plaza with a museum, and hence also created a large open space network in the population of Pasig, including a 1 hectare park behind the city hall. The mayor wanted us to build additional park space, but he didn't have any more area except for 2,000 square meters on top of his city hall, and we converted that into a panorama garden on the 8th floor. So there are lots of opportunities for public open space in our towns and cities. We just have to find creative ways to do that, and we did so also in the CBD in Ortigas with pocket parks or elevated parks, and this one we just won an award from the NCCA. We also design private village parks. Originally, they were not designed by landscape architects, and detailed park design is really a specialty of landscape architects. There are over 500 licensed and registered landscape architects in the Philippines, and I enjoin you all to use the services of professionals to design our open spaces, because we can transform what used to look like a prison enclave into a nice public park for everyone. And the residents of the village, this village now got to meet each other and get to know each other again, well, especially during this pandemic time. But again, open space is really required by all of us. This in Jaime Velasquez Park in Salcedo Village, open green space. And also, we designed urban patios in Makati, understanding that a lot of the area used by vehicles is underutilized. And so urban patios allow us to cross corners safely, at the same time provide open space for everyone to use and enjoy. And we also just recently won an award from the DTI for that. Our most popular project is the Iloilo Civic Space, the Esplanade and associated developments. I'll only show a few slides because the mayor of Iloilo is joining us this afternoon, and he has more of this to show the success of investment in the public realm that makes profits that accrue to everyone, including the owners of the real estate beside them. But Iloilo is the bike capital of the country, as the good Mayor Tranias will present to you later. I'm sure he will. But Iloilo, we also did the parks for the provincial capital, as shown here, which is integrated with the Esplanade. And what we really need to learn is to replace concrete infrastructure with green corridors and linear parks. We have some opportunities here, but across the world, we are seeing that cities are replacing concrete infrastructure with green infrastructure, going back to how nature used to be able to sustain us. This is in Madrid, replacing freeways and highways with green corridors. While here in Manila, we're still in the mode of building freeways and skyways, and even suggesting that our rivers be covered up. This is Chong, again, tearing down a skyway, which of course all of the skyways don't work eventually because of the principle of induced demand. This is the Big Dig in Boston, freeway that was removed and turned into a park. The Place de la République, a vehicular rotunda turned into a pedestrian realm. So other cities are doing, we should be able to make the choice and also address connectivity problems between our MRTs and where we have to go. This is in Guadalupe. So there are opportunities all around. We just have to find the opportunities, like here in Quezon City, at the UP. And we can also take an effort to green our infrastructure so they don't look like that, and find opportunities to conserve open space in our cities, like this in Quezon Institute in Quezon City, in the National Institute for Mental Health. And hopefully they are not sold out to commercial development and kept as open spaces. This is Viluna. And what will happen to our skyways, those that have already been built and we have not stopped, eventually what will happen is that we could just turn them into linear parks. And we have to take advantage of the opportunity of things like the Pasig River and turn it into a 25-kilometer linear park, and stop proposals to turn it into this. So I end with this. It's a book I bought a couple of years ago in Malaysia, which shows the tropical garden city, and the image they show of the good garden city is, of course, Kuala Lumpur, but on the lower right is the poster boy for what is not a tropical garden city, and a prize to those who can guess where that is. So we can choose our future, and our future is either gray or green. But the choice is ours to make, and a choice we have to make soon, from gray to green. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Paulo. Maraming salamat. Another very insightful presentation from you. Thank you very much. I'd like to just highlight a few things that you mentioned. It's really a daunting task to go from 1 square meter public park open space per person to what the UN recommends, which is 9. But I think from your presentation, it's great that you were showing some good examples on how we can go about it 1 square kilometer at a time, or maybe 1 kilometer, or one pocket park, or 1 urban patio, or 1 piazza at a time, and also the very creative ways that even elevate, not just the ground level, but also start looking at the higher levels, turning in City Hall rooftop into a public space. So thank you for that very insightful presentation, Sir Paulo.
No problem, sir.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Let's go on to our next presenter. Oh, by the way, before we move on, I'd like to remind our webinar viewers that you can please now put in your questions in the Q&A box of Zoom or in the comment section of Facebook, and then our panelists can either answer it there right away, or di kaya we can take your questions later in the discussion panel. So our next speaker, we have invited Dr. Nathaniel Dinky von Eisedel. So Sir Dinky is a fellow of the Philippines Institute of Environmental Planners, or the PIEP, and the United Architects of the Philippines, the UAP, with extensive experience in government, the private sector, and international assistance organizations in the field of urban development. He served as Commissioner for Planning of Metro Manila and Regional Director of Asia Pacific of the United Nations Urban Management Program. He is presently the President of Assure and concurrently Principal Urban Planner of Concept Incorporated. He was awarded in 2012 as an outstanding professional in the field of environmental planning. To discuss towards green and healthy communities, let us all welcome Sir Dinky. Sir Dinky. Okay, let's get Sir Dinky on video. Magandang hapon sa inyo. And let's, if you can load up your presentation, sir. Again, I'd like to remind folks, no, you just don't forget, put in your questions in the Q&A chat box. And then if you like that question, you just click on the thumbs up para ma-vote up yung question na yan sa ating priority list. Sir Dinky, are you there? Let's get some help from our back office to try to get Sir Dinky online. Okay, once again, one more try, Sir Dinky. Let's try to get him on the chat. Okay, I think we're having some technical problems with the connection with Sir Dinky. What we'll do, let's get our third speaker going so that we can proceed while we fix the connection with Sir Dinky. So our third speaker we've lined up is architect Cathy Saldana. Okay, so Cathy is the principal or CEO of PDP Architects, a team of architects and engineers based in Makati City. Cathy graduated in 1990 from the UP Diliman College of Architecture, where she was an active student leader in the University Student Council. In year 2000, she graduated with honors at the Asian Institute of Management for her master's degree. And in 2021, Cathy completed an executive diploma program in real estate management from the Chamber of Real Estate and Builders Associations and the LaSalle Benilde. She is a trustee in the board of the Urban Land Institute of the Philippines and co-leads the Women Leadership Institute in Real Estate. She is an international associate of the American Institute of Architects. Cathy is known for hospitality design, retail mixed use, residential and corporate high-rises, industrial cold storage facilities, island development, master planning, affordable housing, project feasibility studies, and is also the pioneers in the Philippines for sustainable resort design. To speak on sense of space, development timelines for the built environment in livable cities, let us welcome the CEO of PDP Architects, architect Cathy Saldana. Hi, Cathy.
Hello, hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Great. So you have your presentation on screen. I leave it to you.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. So this afternoon, I speak on a sense of place, the value of green buildings in livable cities. We are where we are in Metro Manila, very dense, and yet we admire those who are up there in the livability index. Cities like Auckland, Osaka, Adelaide, Wellington, Tokyo. And where are we? Scoring out of 100, we have a very sad 53.4 out of the best possible score of 100. And yet we are trying very hard and looking at it. We are finding ways through strategy, through political will, and through urban planning and design to make it where we are putting forward green buildings for livability. You have all the well-known cities in the Philippines, from Davao to Cebu to Baguio to Manila. And up and coming, we have Clark Global City and the new Clark City. These are the various factors that contribute to having a highly urbanized city become more livable, from physical to economic, social to governance. These are all important to emphasizing green building and open spaces for livability. So for the 5 most livable cities in the Philippines, you have Lucena, Davao, Puerto Princesa, Olongapo City, and Marikina City. Only one of them is in NCR. What is livability? A few examples of what we have. Say, certain portions of BGC, where people can walk around freely, the community in Rockwell Center, perhaps portions of Greenbelt, and the very well-defined Iloilo City with all its landmarks, its hubs, and its esplanade having been designed by Paolo Alcazaran, also on the panel here, and our mayor joining us shortly. We look at the most livable cities, Singapore perhaps very close to us, Auckland in New Zealand, and then we understand what are their green buildings that we admire that we must have and emulate here in the Philippines. Looking at Zurich, what have they done? They basically kept and maintained their heritage structures, combined them with green architecture, and voila, you have a very livable city. I particularly like the Park Royal in Singapore, designed by a friend. And we look at green features and natural daylighting, the way they put in vegetated open spaces with bicycles and pedestrian amenities, excellent architecture, outdoor features, indoor and outdoor comfort, the use of plants, most emphasized architecture. And then there are the livable buildings. I particularly admire the Menarco Tower in BGC by Carmen Jimenez Ong, and looking at how they were able not just to apply LEED standards, but also WELL standards, emphasizing comfortable indoor spaces, natural daylighting, indoor and outdoor spaces for their guests and their occupants, looking at engineering as a vital component of ensuring the wellness of its occupants through the WELL standard. So we have stability, healthcare, education, culture, environment. These are criteria for the livability of cities. And certainly green buildings come into the fore. We take, for example, the Green Building Framework and the Philippine Green Building Council's BERDE, Building Ecologically Responsive Design Excellence. And we have an example here for one of our projects in Davao City that is certified BERDE, up for certification for others. And we call to action. I have here a word cloud that inspires people to look at, say, legislation on a national basis. Hopefully, our congressmen and senators can look at how green buildings will be provided tax incentives or other such incentives. Architects and planners can up their standards so that it doesn't become a design feature, but certainly becomes part of what is expected. That LGUs, our local government units, create ordinances both on the city and the municipal level to ensure that all the buildings are designed according to green standards. It is also important to have this embodied in our culture, as well as a responsibility for us in the public sector to make sure that these happen and that our buildings are designed accordingly. This is part of our urban design campaign. We look at environment indoor quality. So the indoor environment quality for a green building has to have daylight and outdoor views. It has to have access to such, thermal comfort, visual comfort, acoustic comfort, indoor air quality, a low VOC environment with its materials used, and microbial contamination prevention for various usage of materials and the technologies and engineering set in place. You see, green buildings can be designed and also can be measured. And in measuring them, you document not just the progress of the building, but also the process in which it was designed and built. Transportation is also very important for that green building. So you have the key establishments very proximate. You have facilities for bicycles and pedestrians. You can cross over to perhaps convenience stores, supermarkets. You can walk over to residential communities. You have preferred parking for disabled, and you have access to mass transportation. Green buildings also use green materials. And for green materials, you have to document the green process for procurement, as well as create a lower carbon footprint by buying local. The use of land and ecology is likewise important. Understanding exactly the land reuse, the ecological features that you need to keep, as well as less use of gray, as Paolo emphasized earlier, for that heat island reduction. It is important to handle waste, and waste management is a very big participatory factor in green buildings. It's also important to have stakeholders all engaged together with the green building professionals and the project managers. As you know, energy is such an important aspect of green buildings, and its efficiency and conservation as a renewable resource and measurement of its reduction and consumption is vital to ensuring that your green buildings perform properly. Water as well, its measurement for both consumption and reduction is important. Rainwater collection must be a major part now of all buildings, even houses. In some municipalities and cities, rainwater harvesting is required, as well as the gray water reuse. We have measurements of emissions to be able to combat greenhouse emissions, as well as that greenhouse effect, and be able to combat as well and measure and contain refrigerants that are likewise toxic. The green building framework is very important to us, and I'm so proud to be a part of the BERDE group, espousing the framework of the Philippine Green Building Council. And here we have other aspects that are important, from management, use of land and ecology, energy conservation, water, waste management, the use of greens, the transportation, the indoor environment quality, and what we call the green building electives that are part of the environmental and social components outside of your building, because all of these contribute as well to the whole development of the project. From employment and economic opportunities, you measure that. It becomes green. You measure as well education and skills development, as well as equality that is likewise put forth when you put together a green building. How do you engage the community surrounding it? How do you ensure health and sanitation and safety are kept to mind? All of these are part of the green building documentation process. There are difficulties in our urban life, from squalor, informal settlers, to difficulties in waste management, to pollution, and all of these we have to be cognizant of. We know how notorious our metropolis is for vehicular traffic, how highly dense our cities are, and yet, what must we do alongside our leaders in order to go against all these difficulties and problems? We align ourselves with the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, and in doing so, focus on number 11 in ensuring that we have green buildings that will then align with number 13 on climate action. This is a very important synopsis because it summarizes everything that is essential to the word sustainability, and green buildings is a major factor in this. Our goal for the future, we want to have our people in a position of health, towards wellness, creating that work-life balance, understanding their future for their children and their community, effective and efficient, working in a live, work, play environment where open spaces and green buildings help make our cities not just a heritage for the future, but also very livable for the present. Thank you so much. Stay in touch and looking forward to the rest of the presentations. Good afternoon.
Great. Thank you, Kathy, for that presentation. And thank you for taking us through all the elements that form, a green building. And there's so many things that come together with that, things like the design elements, the materials, waste management, and all of the resources, how all of these resources come in, and also the wastes that come out from the green building ecosystem. Very, very interesting concepts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now let's thank you for the presentation, Kathy. And again, everyone, if you have questions to Kathy, I see some of the questions in the Q&A chat box, I think can be answered by Kathy. So thank you all for your questions. And also I see Paolo is busy typing away, trying to answer the questions there. So thank you. It's good to engage with you in this webinar. Now let's try to bring back Sir Dinky into the conversation. Kanina, I made that very, there you go. I gave the introduction early on, Sir Dinky. Are you good to go with your presentation, sir?
Yes, let me thank you, Sui, and sorry for my signal. I lost my signal. Let me share my screen.
It's very clear now, so please go ahead. There you go. We can see it now.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, sir. We can see it now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So the topic, well, first of all, let me thank the Liveable Cities Philippines for inviting me to this lab. And thank you also to Paolo and Kathy for covering a lot of the things I wanted to talk about. So I'll just compliment what they've said. Anyway, let me just first put a little bit of context to my presentation. I'd like to relate my presentation to what we have been experiencing during this pandemic, and the kind of lessons that we can draw from this. As we go day by day with lockdowns and border closures and checkpoints and all of this stuff. Okay, now I think we all know that the spread of the virus has really taken place a lot in our metropolitan areas, or where our cities tend to coalesce into one large areas. And this highlights the relationship between urban and rural areas. Cities, as we know, are the entry points for the virus. And as such, they constitute a kind of a critical line of defense and offer opportunities to be able to respond, to recover, and to build long-term resistance. So my presentation focuses on the spatial implications of the pandemic and recommends the necessary changes or rethinking of the way we deal with urban forms so that we can mitigate the spread of future contagions and also be able to reduce the adverse effect on our economy, on everyone's life, and on the environment. So let me proceed first to what the relationship is of the pandemic and city planning. As we know, and for many of us or for those of you among the audience who are architects and planners, we all know that the physical form of cities, the way streets are laid out, the way sanitation systems have been designed, the way parks and open space, this have been repeatedly transformed in the wake of previous pandemics and health crises. And they've been altering the way people inhabit the cities and interact within cities. And although there has been a number of technological innovations and combined with human ingenuity in modifying the way cities look and function, we still have very serious challenges that we need to overcome. Some of them were mentioned by Kathy, and this includes inadequate basic services, the inequity, and of course, in more recent times, climate change. So the pandemic has really changed a lot of the ways that we've been doing things, almost every aspect of our city life. But we also see that well-planned urban structures remain a precondition for cost-effective and environmentally sound delivery of services. And also, urban planning principles that espouse sustainability and equitability are still very much relevant and critical for coping with the current pandemic, as well as in preparing for the future health crisis. As we know very well, this pandemic that we're going through now is most likely not the only one we will be going through in the coming years. Let me now proceed to discussing a little bit about the implications at the regional level. Now, we have seen that the pandemic has exposed further the challenges of climate change, habitat destruction, and the effect of our own travel and consumer behavior that impacts on public health, as well as on environmental health. We've also learned that animal species and zoonotic diseases that previously may have been contained in specific locations now have proven to leave no one untouched because of today's globalized world. Many of our regions have been brought to a standstill with border closure and city lockdowns. And this exposes our cities' very strong dependence on global supply chains, from sourcing to manufacturing to production and consumption. Now, these linkages and these movement patterns are critical to keep our cities and the urban systems running, and also to support our cities as centers of sustainable growth and new opportunities. Now, there are three important considerations at the regional level that are both affected by and impact on urban forms. These are: one, environmental systems; second, connectivity; and third, agriculture and food systems. Now, first, on environmental systems. The spread of the virus and the infections in the last few decades have been enhanced by our very rapid and often disorganized urbanization, and very often unplanned. It's also been aggravated by our loss of biodiversity and the increase in the contact between humans and wildlife. But even before the pandemic, studies already confirmed how land use change, extraction activities like mining, and migration have altered and fragmented natural habitats. And this have brought in the interface, the exchange of, or the proximity of people to animals or to wildlife, and therefore increasing the chances of new infectious diseases to spread. But at the same time, we also have been experiencing the challenges of global warming, like the heat waves, pollution, intensive farming, and the overexploitation of our natural resources. One of the very strong effects or serious effects on environmental systems is on our quality of air. And the COVID-19 virus, the pandemic, is actually, very much related to air pollution. It's a respiratory disease, which is aggravated by air pollution. So limiting air pollution should be part of the response when we try to build resilience to the pandemic. I won't go through the details of this. You can get copies of this presentation if you wish later on. Another impact on environmental systems is specifically on habitats, wildlife habitats, and on water. And as we have seen, the physical changes in the environment have profound impacts on how zoonotic diseases, the diseases that start from animals or originate from animals, how these diseases originate and proliferate. And this is being brought about because of the encroachment of our cities, of our urban areas into wildlife areas, and the destruction of natural habitats and ecosystems. There are a number of things that can be done. Again, I will not go into the details of this, but I'm sure you can Google all of this if you wish. The other consideration at the regional level is that of connectivity. The interface between the different cities in the network and towns. We know the Philippines, we do have metropolitan areas, and there's an increasing number of these metropolitan areas. And we also know that there's a lot of transaction that's going on among the cities or between the cities and the rural outskirts. And then the transport of goods facilitated by air, water, rail, road. And whenever you have these kinds of transactions, it contributes to the threat of cross-border infections. Also, at the level of the region, the cities rely a lot on our agricultural areas, which are just outside of our cities, and the kind of support that these agricultural areas provide in terms of food supply, and which are very much needed for healthcare and as well as for emergency support. Now, because of the interdependent nature between urban areas and rural areas, it is essential that the impacts, vulnerabilities, and the opportunities in both urban and rural areas be considered together. In other words, you cannot just plan a city within its boundary because of its interconnection with its rural outskirts. And you cannot also plan your rural outskirts without considering what's happening in the city. Now, food supply is one of those very important considerations as we've experienced during this pandemic. And because of lockdowns and the closure of borders, this has affected the entry and the delivery of vital services and amenities, especially food. And so one of the things we need to look into is how can we integrate logistics, warehouses, cold storage plants, etc., into land use plans and to transport plans, both at the city level and at the regional level. So we need to consider how transport relates to the way that the cities depend on its rural areas and vice versa. And cities and regions can become more resilient to pandemics if we invest in infrastructure and settlement types that support localization, economic diversification, and enhanced self-sufficiency. Let me now move on to the role of cities. Some of this have been covered by Paulo and Kathy, but let me just go through some of these critical things. The pandemic has made it very visible that while there might be hospitals, there might be medical facilities, there might be doctors and nurses, there are profound inequities in terms of the delivery of the health service. There's a lot of inequities in terms of housing and income. And this have divided cities long before the pandemic. And it has heightened the urgent need for inclusive access to services and amenities for all. And the role of cities is very important here. Access to urban services are very much intertwined with the form and function of the cities, specifically issues, for example, relating to density, to mobility, and to connectivity. As the cases of COVID-19 rose globally, there has been a targeting of cities as the hotspots for the spread of the virus. And this is linked to city size, the population, and connectivity. Because the larger cities experienced higher initial growth of the COVID-19 growth rate, at least in the beginning. Okay? And the most vulnerable to the spreading of the pandemic outbreaks have been the large metropolitan areas because of the higher number of component LGUs tightly linked together because of its economic relationships, its social and commuting relations. Density is, of course, directly related to the issue of population, but as you can see in this diagram, in 1 hectare of land, you can accommodate the same number of housing units. In this diagram, it shows 74, but it depends on how you design it. So we need to, I think, understand that density is not the same as overcrowding, because there is a certain degree of advantage to having dense cities. And I will get to that a little later. Now, what we need to attend to are the so-called weak spots. There are a number of weak spots in almost all of our cities. And these are characterized by one, overcrowding. It's not so much the population density. It's that the population density is not matched by the delivery of the service or the inadequate living or circulation space. I'm particularly bothered, for example, by the tendency in our real estate industry where housing units are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. How small can it get? Another characteristic is that of poor connectivity. When you have homes and communities that are cut off from the neighboring parts of the city, they lack public transport, etc. And this creates a lot of problems, particularly for the poor and the disadvantaged. And of course, the vulnerable locations. These are the high-risk areas, such as floodplains, riverbanks, or garbage dumps, where obviously the range of health and environmental hazards for residents are very, very high. Within the cities, we also need to attend to the issue of urban mobility. There has been a lot of lockdowns, and we now do a lot of work from home. And there has been an unprecedented increase in non-motorized travel, such as walking and cycling. But as we have seen in a number of places, they have not been provided for adequately. We need to exert a little bit more effort in promoting integrated mobility networks that provide safe and affordable public transport. And because this provides a lot of benefits like improved air quality, a reduction in road accidents, and a more equitable access to essential services and opportunities. So let me move on to the level of the neighborhood. Social distancing has, together with movement restrictions, lockdowns, etc., during this pandemic, has allowed the neighborhood to take on a more renewed importance in urban life. And I think maybe one of the important lessons we've seen here is the rise of the community pantries. And also we've seen that in response to the pandemic, public spaces have been repurposed for different kinds of uses or emergency uses, okay? But it's necessary, and this is something I'd like to convey to our mayors, we need to kind of invest a little more effort in neighborhood planning and also in establishing participatory platforms to involve local stakeholders in the planning of not only the neighborhoods, but of the cities. The public spaces in our neighborhoods have become much, much more important, and the pandemic has highlighted this. Paulo has mentioned a lot about the importance of the parks. Okay, and you know, we need a lot more of parks, and not only just for providing trees and landscaping, but also for possible use for, like, for example, temporary hospitals, for isolation sites, and for community health centers. Okay? We also need, and I mentioned this already about, you know, aside from public parks, paying more attention to where we can put in bicycle lanes, pedestrian-friendly streets, and continuous blue-green networks, meaning rivers and creeks and parks and open spaces. The public spaces are much more important, especially in the areas where livelihoods tend to be more informal, because very often urban livelihoods that depend on the informal economy, the public spaces often serve as the market areas. So we need to integrate this into the design and the planning of our neighborhoods. You know, the 15-minute neighborhood has become quite popular. What does it actually mean? It means being compact, such that it provides the ability to people to meet their daily needs, such as shopping, healthcare, socializing, education, within walking distance of their home. And to be able to achieve this idea, neighborhoods need to be compact, and they need to be mixed use. So let me just draw some concluding remarks. We know from history that public health has always been a key concern of city governance, and that the responses of government officials, urban planners, architects, citizens in history to the health crisis have created new approaches, regulations, and institutions. And this is very evident now that a lot of ideas have started to come up. But the evidence from the pandemic also suggests that the cities with a more equitable and accessible distribution of basic services have been better able to limit the number of vulnerable and high-risk communities at the outset. And all of this emphasized that well-planned, well-designed, and spatially equitable cities are more resilient to health crises and other shocks and stresses. That's it for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Dinky. I like what you said about how cities that are well designed in terms of its form and its function are better suited to deal with stresses, and also in the everyday purpose of delivering the services. But of course, you went through a lot of the different interdependencies, food, water, transportation, mobility, logistics. All of those things really play a role, and therefore kailangan talagang aralin ito and consider everything together. I also like how you mentioned about how to address weak spots, in order to get your city more resilient or better suited to deliver the services. But I also, maganda yung sinabi niyo rin about the role of the neighborhoods, and that connects to what Sir Paulo mentioned before, that you do things a little at a time. That's a way to progress, the development of the city. Thank you very much, Sir Dinky. Very enlightening presentation.
You're welcome.
Okay, sir. So our final speaker this afternoon, we've invited the mayor of Iloilo City, Mayor Jerry Treñas, to speak to us this afternoon. Mayor Treñas earned his Bachelor of Arts major in Political Science degree in 1978 at Ateneo de Manila University. And afterwards, he pursued a Bachelor of Laws degree in the Ateneo de Manila University in 1982, where he graduated with honors. So Mayor Jerry also served as the chairman of League of Cities of the Philippines from July 2007 up to 2010, and served as a congressman from 2010 to 2019. We'd like to call on Mayor Jerry on stage to discuss Iloilo City's his presentation about Iloilo City, creating green buildings and open spaces. Let's welcome the Mayor of Iloilo City, Mayor Jerry Treñas. Mayor, how are you this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Sui.
Good afternoon. Yes, sorry.
And to Paolo, Dinky, and the rest. I started as a councilor in Iloilo City in 1986. I was appointed by then President Cory Aquino, and I really saw how Iloilo City was since that time. And I am very happy that as I went on with my public service, I collaborated with Dinky in several projects for Iloilo City. And I have seen how Paolo collaborated with the officials of coming from Iloilo City, most especially Senator Drilon, for our Esplanade and Aquino Avenue. Iloilo has really changed a lot. We were able to solve our flood problem by a 5-kilometer floodway, which was constructed during the time of President Arroyo. And the roads of Iloilo, including the drainage, were done during the time of President Aquino. And we are very proud of what Paolo has done with our Esplanade. Now, in the midst of a pandemic, we are collaborating with Paolo for the renovation and restoration of all the plazas of Iloilo. As you know, Iloilo City used to be several municipalities. And when it was chartered 84 years ago, exactly during on this date, all the 6 other municipalities had their own plazas. And now, together with Paolo, we are doing all the plazas. We have started with the plaza in front of the City Hall, the most historic plaza, because that is where the Spanish forces surrendered on December 25, 1889. And we now call that Plaza Libertad, which used to be Plaza Alfonso. And the works are starting, and probably by next year, we will be able to show to you our plazas and our public markets, which we will continue to renovate even in the midst of this pandemic. We want to make sure that Iloilo will be prepared for the influx of investment after this pandemic. We are now targeting to construct hospital, because that is really what we need for Iloilo City. At the moment, our hospitals are full, and just this morning I had a heated argument with PhilHealth. They have not yet paid up to the moment about 1 billion from claims coming from the hospitals. And this is really a criminal act, especially during this time when people cannot get into hospitals because they do not have rooms available. And hospitals cannot, in turn, open up more beds because they are unpaid. Imagine almost 1 billion. Anyway, in spite of this, we go on. Life has to go on. The cities have to be run. And we just try to make sure that everyone is safe. So may I proceed? With the many dreams that I have for my beloved city, one remains closest to my heart, and that is to make Iloilo a sustainable city where we meet the needs of the present without sacrificing the ability of the future to meet their own. Iloilo City, smack right at the heart of the Philippines, has become one of the top tourist destinations in the country. But it is home to Ilonggos who face the risk brought about by natural and human-induced hazards due to the geographic location, including its social vulnerabilities. However, we remain steadfast in our best practices as we double our efforts in creating a city that is resilient and sustainable amid socio-economic challenges brought about by the current pandemic. Developments did not take a backseat, rather they continue to drive us towards economic progress. But alongside rapid urbanization, we embark on massive tree planting and environment-friendly activities for sustainable development. We also have what we call the JPT Ediscape, or edible landscape, where communities plant in their open spaces vegetables, which they can also use for their own communities. We are now finalizing the updated comprehensive land use plan to keep track with improvements and competitiveness of the vibrant and livable metropolis. Some of our environmental projects in the works are the Iloilo Beach Forest, a 3-hectare project which will be implemented in partnership with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and the Department of Public Works and Highways. We have the Iloilo City Tree Park in Lanit, Haro, a 3-hectare tree park which will be planted with endemic, native, and local trees. We have green panels along the bike lanes, which were constructed and planned, designed by Paulo in the Aquino Avenue, now also called the Diversion Road. We will have mini forests in subdivisions, open spaces. What we are doing right now is going to the subdivisions in Iloilo and planting mini forests in their subdivisions. We have a mangrove eco park, a 35-hectare mangrove forest, which is now existing and will be developed with the support of project partners, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and Global Business Power Corporation. I have always been committed to maximizing our potentials in protecting the environment to lessen the impacts of climate change and disasters. That is why we have accentuated environmental management in the roadmap that we are using as our guide. We continue to maintain the beautiful Esplanade, which was designed by Paulo. We will improve all our plazas also to be designed by Paulo. And we have initiated closer engagements with the DENR, including stakeholders for our waste management program. Together with the DNR, we are also planting along our old dam site bamboos and endemic trees so that it will be more beautiful. Tree planting and coastal cleanup activities continue our efforts in mitigating climate change. We are also looking into the practicability of using renewable energy sources and provide real property tax incentives to commercial buildings using renewable energy. In all our schools, we have put out perimeter solar lights so that we reduce our dependency on electric power. All these initiatives will be put into action with the support of the public and the private sector. We have always put premium in collaborating with partners like all the business establishments here in Iloilo, because I believe that it is only when the LGU and the private sector work harmoniously together that we can maximize our potentials in creating progressive, green, and sustainable communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Jerry. I'm really glad to see that yung presentation mo is very green by itself. No? There's lots of, you mentioned a lot of very good examples on the greening of Iloilo City, the tree parks, the mangrove eco park, the beach forest, you know, even the edible landscaping initiative, quite very, very inspirational. I mean, maybe other cities in this webinar or in the country can take that as a good example. I'd like to call on Sir Bill. I think he's would like to get into this portion of the webinar to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Sui. Mayor, good afternoon. I just wanted to thank you for joining us today, you know, and for making your presentation on Iloilo. I know how busy you must be with your vaccination rollout program on top of all the other city affairs that you're doing. So I want to thank you personally for joining us. I think not many people in the room know among our panelists that my family, my mother's side, is actually from Iloilo. We are from Haro, which is of course one of the, I guess, the municipalities which eventually became part of all of Iloilo. And while I never grew up in Iloilo, I started visiting Iloilo only as an adult when I started working. And I went back periodically and have gone back periodically for many years. except until COVID struck, I haven't been able to go back. No, and I must say, Iloilo's been such a great example of a city which has transformed itself. If you see the journey that Iloilo has gone through, in the last 20 years, it's just been an amazing transformation. And the city, I think, is really a leader in building up and recovering all these spaces and building up new open spaces, and at the same time taking care of all its heritage sites and even building new buildings following that heritage look. And I just want to congratulate the Mayor Jerry, the City Council, the whole team of Iloilo actually, because it really required uh, several administrations and all layers of government to make it happen. But it's a good example of what happens when an administration across time is so well coordinated within the government and with the private sector, and they use professional designers. Again, I can't emphasize this enough because you know uh, we have cities and we have clients, but clients sometimes don't pick, don't go out of their way to select really good professional designers, and also uh, they're a smart client, and that's why I think the product is so good. So, Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. I just really wanted to say this, and I know you're so busy and you won't be able to join us in the panel discussion, but maraming salamat, Mayor.
Thank you. And I want to tell you that Haro Plaza will be among the plazas that will be restored and soon, because the funds are already there and the plans have been finalized, and it will be sent to the back for bidding.
Great, great. Now I look
Good
forward to
news.
visiting Iloilo again, not only looking at all the old plazas, but I believe each plaza mayor is fronting the cathedral for that place, right? For
Yes,
each
yes.
municipality. So you really get to see the history of the place.
Thank you, thank
Congratulations,
you,
Mayor.
and thank you for all your support to Iloilo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jerry, and thank you, Sir Bill. So we'd like to call on Michelle Ora from Globe Telecom's Director and Head of Strategic Properties Business Development, to highlight a few takeaways from the four presentations. Mitch leads the team responsible for delivering master-planned, future-proof Globe facilities across upcoming property developments. Close collaboration and partnerships with various property developments in the last 15 years helped build connectivity, anticipating demand right before the communities were built. Mitch has over 20 years of experience in the telco industry, spanning business development, sales, marketing, project management, and general management. So Mitch participated in the technical working group that has led to the enactment of the Ease of Doing Business and Efficiency Delivery of Government Services Act of 2018, working closely with the NCC, DTI, NTC, DITC, DICT, DOTR, DOF, the PWH, and other national government agencies. So let us all welcome to Liveable Cities Lab, Miss Michelle Ora. Hi, Michelle.
Hello. Hi, Sui. Good
Hi.
afternoon. And good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Bill, and the rest of the LCC team. Nice to be with you guys again. I've worked with Bill in several years ago, and I'm happy to see where we are today, Bill. So congratulations to the team. And of course, the rest of our panelists today. I am very happy to be here. It's very comforting and refreshing, Sui, hearing what our panelists shared earlier. And I think it is now more than ever that the topic on environmental care is most important for everyone, no? Especially with what's happening around the world today, no? And most of us are working from home, right? And it's important to highlight how as we talk about green buildings and open spaces, it's very important to highlight as well how technology enables green buildings and how we can integrate this as we plan for open spaces. So at this point, let me share my screen. Let me share my presentation. Can you see my?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Okay. So I'll just put it on presentation mode. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing a few slides before I talk about the key takeaways that I got from all our wonderful speakers today. So we all know that communication and connectivity is vital to any city's progress. And that is adapting to latest technology, because we know that can bring life-enriching solutions. Today, the way we live, has changed dramatically, and the need for connectivity has been highlighted and became very important in our lives, especially when we first had the lockdown last year. And so we have reached that point where when internet is cut, ganyan ang itsura natin, no? That's how we will look like. Parang we cannot imagine a day in our lives today walang internet, kasi nga internet is life, right? So earlier, we saw Sir Dinky having problems with this connection. And so, in fact, this webinar would not have been possible if not for the connectivity that we all have in where we are today. So, and connectivity has to be affordable, sustainable, equitable, and accessible for all. Much like any of the basic services, utilities that we have today in our homes, water, power, sanitation, it has become very important and well ingrained in our lives. And we have seen how technology has shifted from one form to another. Remember those days when we used to send letters, snail mail, right? Read the news on printed papers, listen to radio, watch TV. Today, more and more people has not been watching pay TV or cable anymore, because we're all on Netflix and all other video streaming that you see out there, Amazon Prime and what have you. So today, we are more connected than ever. And so allow me now to look back to what our speakers have shared earlier, because we also need to make that shift to sustainable environmental architecture. So I have 4 key takeaways, Sui, that I'd like to share. One is coming off from what we've seen from Mayor Jerry's presentation, and it can be done, right? If Mayor Jerry can do it, I'm sure others should be able to do it. We should be able to do it. Paolo was talking about open spaces in the metro. Sure, the pictures showed that parang wala na tayong space in Metro Manila, but it can be done. Our next action point should be, how do we make it happen, especially in the challenge parts of the different densely populated cities? We can probably start small. I mean, we need to be pragmatic about this. And Sui mentioned this earlier. Every piece of small space we can convert to an open space, to a park. That would be nice to start with, your patio or what have you. A lot of us became plantitos and plantitas when the lockdown first happened, right? Or we can start big where we can, right? I recently moved to a new place, and I'm happy to see Kathy showed earlier where I live is one of the livable cities in Metro Manila. So yes, we really just to make that decision now, right? As Paolo said earlier, we need to make the choice. Do we want to go green or gray, right? And second, and which brings me to my second point, we need to want it ourselves. Collaboration, and Mayor Jerry has shown that, the resolve for all of us to do it, political will for our leaders, and that we need to take action now. Building a green, healthy community should be a priority now more than ever. Sir Dinky was talking about emphasizing the importance of well-planned density, the collective and organized way of living, ensuring proper access and provision of adequate and affordable basic services. To design cities, regions that are truly resilient to pandemics, to disasters, calamities. And I know we have learned a lot since the first lockdown happened. I recall the time when the lockdown first happened last year, and everybody was at a loss. Dinky was showing examples of how important it is to ensure that we're able to redesign our cities and regions in such a way that we are able to still allow continuous flow of food, supply of food from the regions into the city and vice versa, right? And seeing that roadmap for the built environment and livable cities that Kathy showed today is very relevant in this pandemic. Well, I would like to call it endemic. I mean, it's part of our lives today. The virus that we are dealing with is part of the life of our lives today. So it's endemic to us already. So we need to start rethinking, and now is the best time more than ever to really get our heads together. And I think the LCC is a very good venue to get it started. So important is the place-making framework that Kathy showed earlier, that the stakeholders should start to come together and establish that framework, anchored on what truly matters to the people, understand how people move, what is most important to the community, their livelihood, how we can leverage on that, no? And it is not impossible. Green architecture, green buildings, we see that today. You go to a mall, you use the comfort room, and you see a sign that says this establishment uses recycled water. In our own building in Globe, we use that same water management system, right? If you go around the neighborhoods today, you'd see more solar panels today than you did 5 years ago, right? So we, even in Globe, we have started to use solar energy for our cell sites, especially in far-flung areas. In our building alone, we advocate for no single use of plastic. So we should bring our own cup. In Globe, we also have this program which we call Globe e-waste program, where employees are can bring their old phones, gadgets, electronics for recycling, right? And the water management system that I mentioned earlier. And the last key takeaway I want to share is on Mayor Jerry's sharing earlier. Kudos, Mayor Jerry, kasagad sa imo, for making green buildings and open spaces happen in Iloilo. What you have done in the city together with your team is proof that when everyone come together, and I especially like what you said about putting a premium on the collaboration between, and Bill mentioned this earlier, no? When private and government work together, right? We're able to leverage on each other's strengths, innovation, creativity, and great things can happen. And having done what you did can elevate the life of the Filipinos. So it's really those four things that I'd like to share, which leads me now to, so as we talk about green buildings and open spaces, right? Because technological advancements that we're enjoying today has always been a priority in Globe. We have been with every Filipino through the years in all these technological advancements, which is why today I am happy to share that we have been able to improve our internet speeds versus 4 years ago, where it was just a 4 Mbps. Today, our download speeds on fiber broadband has gone to as much as 71 Mbps if you're on fiber broadband. On mobile, it has gone to as much as 33.69 Mbps. And this is based on the latest Ookla Global Speed and Index that was conducted in June 2021, right? And because of our continued investments to make our networks more efficient as we grow our network and really ensure to deliver better service to the Filipinos, we have been able to offer value for money plans. And we have brought down from 23 pesos back in 2017, 23 pesos per gig. It is now to as low as 9 pesos. And this is because of the efficiencies we have achieved in our network. And that is because customer experience is our priority as we continue to upgrade our network. And did you know that an average Filipino spends 9 hours, 45 minutes online every day, which is exactly why we continue to focus efforts to roll out more sites, expand to more places, so we're able to connect more Filipinos together. So we have been able to ramp up our site builds and fiber to homes in the last year. Today, we have over 11,000 physical tower sites across the country, where 10,000 of this have been upgraded to 4G LTE. We have also been able to deliver 5G locations nationwide. That's about 1,600 as of May, and 526,000 fiber lines nationwide. And that's only 5 months going into the year versus a 1 million target for the rest of the year. So we really look forward to the future where our country would have a robust digital economy backed by resilient and reliable connectivity. And we continue to accelerate our builds to expand coverage and increase data capacity with the strong support of ARTA and the recently signed Bayanihan to Recover as One, or Bayanihan 2, that has allowed us to fast-track rollout of our sites because permits and national government permits and licenses have been released way faster than before. So that has allowed us to upgrade our network. So we're now doing an upgrade of all our sites nationwide to 4G LTE, so we're able to deliver better connectivity. We want to make 4G LTE as the standard of connectivity in the country. Free and convenient SIM upgrades so that when the 4G sites are there, and in fact 10,000 of them are there, our customers who are still on 3G can just go to the nearest store, have their SIMs switched to 4G without having to change their numbers, and with that LTE SIM and our upgraded sites for customers to experience superior mobile connectivity. And that would mean 50 Mbps compared to the previous 7 Mbps if you're still on 3G. So we all know that connectivity is a great equalizer. It opens up a lot of opportunity for education, livelihood. So reliable connectivity equates better livability in any cities. And the road to recovery requires a pivot to digitalization. Businesses, whether big or small, will continue to be reliant on connectivity and the digital tools needed to keep their businesses afloat. So Globe continues to enhance the Filipinos through with the digital life through various digital platforms. And we are committed to continuously improve network performance, and we should be able to complete our transformation within the year. And as we talk about building resilient communities amidst rapid urbanization, we need to elevate our standard of access to. This will help in terms of proper coordination when there are disasters, pandemics, allows people better access to opportunities in livelihood and education, and especially true in the concept of well-planned density. Connectivity is vital as part of basic services for all. So at this point, allow me to share a video showing how we build our resilient network in Globe. How we are doing our part in building green and resilient infrastructure to better serve Filipinos even and especially during disasters. So please play the video.
To ensure connectivity during critical times, Globe continues to invest in rapid deployment solutions.
Cell site on wheels is essentially a complete cell site with all the electronics and hardware required to take over another site that is down. So the tower on wheels help us recover the site kung saan natumba yung tower. Yung controller on a light truck naman is access concentrator for the mobile telephone network, be able to sustain service immediately or recover service immediately. Mobile command centers are sleeping quarters, conference facilities or meeting rooms where we could assemble the team of recovery engineers.
At sa pamamagitan ng pagpapatupad ng business continuity management, mas nagiging epektibo ang pagre-responde ng team.
Our focus is in ensuring business continuity during disaster and extreme weather events. And by initiating projects that allow Globe to effectively respond and recover to major disasters, we are able to help and work hand in hand with the government in providing the much-needed communication service.
Ngayong pandemic, lalong nararamdaman ang kahalagahan ng pagkakaroon ng resilient network.
Even before sustainability was ingrained in the BSC, and TGU has already been working to build a more resilient network. We have always been looking for newer, more efficient equipment and technologies. At the same time, we continue to upskill our teams to keep with the ever-changing telco needs and customer needs. We use the best and latest technologies out there para kahit paano we help sustain and contribute to minimize the impact of climate change.
Globe stands in the front lines to build a resilient network that can combat climate change and its impacts.
We are a pillar in the country's infrastructure. We carry sustainability by pervasively investing in newer and greener technologies. All these are anchored to our vision of a Philippines where families' dreams come true, businesses flourish, and a nation is admired.
Thank you, Sui.
Thank you, Mitch, and thank you for that presentation. I think one of the things that stood out for me yung binanggit mo that great things can happen, and perhaps we can do this in small steps, as Paolo mentioned. It starts with a small piazza into a small park, and then maybe a 1 kilometer, and gets bigger and bigger to the extent that what's being done
Pragmatic that way, yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Great presentation. I'd like to call Mitch. Stay online. Stay on the stage. We'd like to call on the other panelists to join us, and we're gonna kick off our Q&A session, our panel discussion. But before we do that, we're going to take a picture. Magano lang tayo. We'll snap a group picture. So everybody. Look at your camera and smile. We have Jean here. Okay, everybody look at your camera and smile. Great. So meron lang kamuhan our staff took our picture. Thank you very much. We'll kick off our Q&A session. Baka mag-overtime lang tayo ng konti, because it's been such a great discussion. We'll kick off with a few questions. Let me start with, this is still in the Q&A chat box. This one is for Cathy to answer. For NCR-based companies looking to move to new locations, what advice can you give in terms of which areas to prioritize for consideration? Cathy, maybe also Paolo or Sister Dinky. So go ahead, Cathy.
Hello, hi again. Well, there are very interesting cities that are not only close to the metropolis, but are easily accessible. So you can go Batangas, you can go Cavite, you can also go Laguna, and then further north, you can go Pampanga and Clark. Traveling forward, there's Bataan as well, undiscovered. And yet, if you move out of Luzon, of course, you have Iloilo and the surrounding areas outside of Davao and within, and even in Negros, Cebu, and its environs. So there are choices. There's a lot of good talent. And yes, Mitch, there's connectivity.
Yes.
Good, good. Thank you. There's a question here that's related. This is rather close to my heart. The question was about is decarbonization a priority for smart cities? So, for example, prioritizing companies who produce cleaner and renewable sources of power, those that have less carbon footprint. So, how does that figure into the green buildings and smart cities? Perhaps Kathy again or Sir Dinky?
Sir Dinky first.
Well, low carbon. There is such a program. I think it's the ASEAN that has been promoting it, which is yung low carbon cities. Mm-hmm. And some of our cities have actually enacted ordinances. If I'm not mistaken, one of the cities in Metro Cebu has adopted such an ordinance, the low carbon city. It is really, as Kathy's presentation also mentioned, it's one of the fundamental objectives of green and healthy cities. Mm-hmm. And it's part of the sustainable cities, sustainable development goals. Mm-hmm. So talagang it really should be pursued. And I think in terms of looking at renewable energy sources that are non-fuel based, this is one of the things that's being pursued by a number of places. Mm-hmm. But of course, it needs some national kind of push to kind of propagate it further.
Right. So you're saying, Sir Dinky, there are some cities that have incentives for these types of.
Yeah, I think Mandaue is the one that adopted such an ordinance, and also the Regional Council of Central Visayas has actually formulated or established an environment subcommittee among the other subcommittees of the Regional Council. So they're really promoting it in Central Visayas.
Great. I see some nodding heads there. Sir Paulo, you have something to add?
If I may add, I'm glad Dinky raised the regional aspect of it. I think decarbonization or lowering your carbon footprint is more achievable at the regional level because of scale. And the fact that we are high carbon is from the reality that we source all of our resources from farther and farther away, especially the metropolitan regions. All of Laguna, Cavite used to supply, and Pampanga, Pangasinan used to supply our food in Metro Manila, but now our food comes from farther and farther away. And so because of the population sizes of Philippine metropolitan conurbations, going low carbon is only achievable at scale. It's very hard to do it you can at a micro level or individual building. Better in context to do it at the regional level.
Great.
Following up, if I may, Sui.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Talking about that on the regional level, right? For example, Urban Land Institute, the ambitious goal is net zero by 2050, and the short-term goal is decarbonization by 2030. And really, green buildings and smart buildings. I love Paulo's answer to one of the questions that was typed in, right, about smart buildings, because everything should lead to a particular purpose, right? It's not just smart just for the sake of being smart, right? The ultimate goal is still health and resilience, right? It's still building a community for our people, and that decarbonization is really the idea that, we want to prevent climate change, we want to protect our resources and protect our people as well. So it would be good that this will be part of the programs of our local government. It's good that we're hearing that a lot of them are already giving this priority. But again, incentives would also need to work. I know there's a lot of debate already about the point system, right, with the greenwashing and all of that globally, but we also have to start somewhere.
Correct. Good. Kathy, would you like to wrap up that the answer to that question?
Yes, perfectly so. Just like what Dinky Jean and Paolo said, we cannot at this stage in our country go carbon zero or carbon negative yet. But if we look at it on a regional basis, different numbers could be attained or could be aspired, say in Visayas, parts of Mindanao, and a different answer would have to be for Luzon and NCR. I believe here in the NCR, it's very hard for us to go carbon negative or carbon zero. There's so many things that we look for and that we buy, and yet that could happen perhaps at a different number. It depends on your location.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Maybe a related question, and I would address this to everybody. The question goes, in your experience, how important has community collaboration or participation been in ensuring the success of parks and open spaces? Are decisions or designs more made from top-down approach or a combination? So for our urban planners here, and perhaps also for Mitch, in the role of the private sector, how does these things get decided and get done?
There was another question about maintenance. Okay, and I think this is that question is related to this question as well, about community participation, because there had been efforts before where parks were designed and did not involve nor even consult the local neighborhood, and then it was completed, and then the local folks did not care about the place, even though a lot of money was poured into it, because they were not involved in the design and construction of the park. And I think that's very important, if only to ensure that there is some kind of continuity in the maintenance of the place. When you develop a park, especially parks at the neighborhood level, the neighborhood needs to be involved. Otherwise, you'll have a problem maintaining it later on.
If I may, on that point, yes, participatory participation in the process is important. In Iloilo, we had a couple of stakeholder meetings before the first phase of the Esplanade was done. But having said that, people can only participate if they have some civic consciousness already and are speaking the same language as you, which we used to be able to do in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, where civics was taught and it was embedded in how you were educated as a citizen. So you understood what government, you talk the same language. Unfortunately, today we find it difficult. I find it difficult to explain what a park is to people who've never seen or used a real park. And so you have to show them pictures, take them around, bring them to places that have real parks. I mean, we encourage people to go overseas. Of course, now there are more parks. So one has to, it's a matter of educating the citizenry and giving them the language so you can have the discourse, exchange ideas, and show them how things could be done. And that's where the professionals can come in, planners, urban designers, landscape architects, can assist the stakeholders in creating that vision. Because some of the visions are not misplaced, but often there's a disjoint between what they want and what could actually be built. And so you have to guide them towards what can be achieved. And that can be done incrementally. As to the maintenance part, that's very important. There used to be in the universities here, Araneta University, and I think the UP, a course on park management. park superintendents is a course in the States. And I think the program in the Araneta and the UPs stopped in the 1960s because there were no takers. And so we don't have anyone trained really in parks management. We have horticulturists, but those are for gardens, not for large parks, which is a totally different thing. And finally, I have to point out that there's a movement in urban design and landscape architecture that goes beyond placemaking. There's now a new movement for placekeeping, which takes the aspects of participatory design and ownership in the process and the product, as well as looking at the investments necessary, not just in designing and building it, but in maintaining and sustaining these open spaces.
Mitch, maybe you can mention something about the role of private companies in all of the development and upkeep of open spaces, perhaps.
Right. So, well, in my current capacity as leading the team who handles facility deployment with property developers. So we work closely with property developers, and the best time to start talking to them, engaging them, and maybe some of these are clients of Paulo's or Dinky and Kathy even, is when they're at the planning stage, so that they're able to integrate telco infrastructure into their development plans. And if the issue on how do we come up with green buildings, open spaces, parks, greeneries, if we put gray matter into the design, right? The towers and all that. And we have aesthetic designs to integrate. So you can like put up a coconut tree. Inside that coconut tree is a tower. It's a cell site. And we see a lot of those in other countries. That's actually how they do it. You go to other countries, you're very surprised. Their signal is very strong, right? Because you don't see it. They're probably hidden in like, kala mo, that's a tree, but actually inside it is a tower, it's a site. Those are small cells. And you're surrounded by it. You walk into what, Disneyland or whatever. It's there, it's all around you. You don't know it. Right? So that's how we integrate we work with the property developers.
If I may, Mitch, I'm often asked, how do you encourage people to use the parks? They're all in the malls, especially the kids. My default answer is just put Wi-Fi. They'll all go there.
They'll all go there.
Yes, no, but we do
put
get
Wi-Fi in the park.
We do get a lot of those requests from the LGUs, from the mayors. Like, well, with Mayor Jerry, we actually have a partnership with him where we're putting up community Wi-Fi across selected areas in the city. And I know some of those are in his parks. So yes, you're correct.
If I may suggest, Michelle, we build a fountain, and the fountain, the focal point is a globe.
Yeah, I can. And inside the fountain is a cell site, right? It's a cell site.
I wonder pag beach development, coconut tree, pero pag sa Baguio, pine tree yung disguise ng ano.
Yes, it's more expensive, but you know, you have to align with how the developers want it to look like. Right.
I forgot something, Sui. I really have to bring this up, and a lot of people point to New York's Central Park as the best, one of the best parks in the world, and it is actually maintained by a nonprofit called Conservancy.
The Conservancy, the Park Conservancy.
When it had problems in the 1970s of disrepair, citizens got together and formed the Conservancy and got into an agreement with the city government. So the Conservancy is overseen by the Parks Department, which takes care of all of the other parks, 2,000 hectares of parks of New York, except for Central Park and a few others that are run by a Conservancy. And this goes into the aspect of voluntarism. So the citizens of New York themselves volunteer. A lot of them become docents to take people around the park, or maintenance, or security, and other aspects of park management. And before I end that, I must point out that estate management is already a course taught at LaSalle or Benil. So we can just expand that into estate management of outdoors rather than just buildings. So that's a very important profession.
Okay. There's an interesting question about before we leave the topic of the cell towers, no? is 5G harmful to your health or to the birds? Before, I'm sure if you make them look like trees, baka dadapuan ng ibon and all of that. But are they harmful to the
No,
animals?
they are not. Okay, we get a lot of those. A lot of people are scared when they see a tower nearby, but when they do not have signal in their phones, they are so angry, right? So ang response ko dyan, no, towers, cell sites they're not cancers, they're not health hazards. It's our lifestyle that causes that. But really, seriously, no. So they're not hazardous, and as I've said, we follow the same standards worldwide in terms of the technologies we deploy in the country, right? Even before we import the equipment we use for 5G, 4G, LTE, those are all following international standards approved by the World Health Organization. We have complied with the DOH requirements and all that, right? So the output power, the signal that emanates from the towers are not high enough to be hazardous.
Okay. Yeah.
They are not radioactive. The frequencies where 5G operate belong to non-ionizing elements, meaning they are not radioactive. So it is safe. And this is a trivia I share to people. In our office, in our building in Globe, right beside our building is a huge tower in Cebu IT Park. And almost every year, people in Globe take a maternity leave. Women. So it's safe. It's not hazardous. They're not health hazards.
Sir Paulo, I'd like to mention.
Yes, my one comment there is that what's more hazardous is some of the content that goes through 5G. I mean,
oh my gosh, that's
media being weaponized by political forces.
That's deadlier.
Local and geopolitical. That's deadlier than 5G.
And 5G, correct. That's true. Thank you, Paulo, for pointing that out.
We're really way over time. But before we end, I'd like to address this question to everybody. Let's go through through everyone. And this is a question from sa ating Q&A. And very briefly, ang tanong dito is how can less affluent LGUs address the lack of open spaces? Or another way to say it is, how can less affluent LGUs secure, protect, have more open spaces? So let's just go around and then get everybody a chance to say something. Let's start with Jean. Jean and Kathy.
Hi, Sui. So this has been interesting. So for ULI, we do advisory services wherein we work with LGUs to provide, we gather experts to be able to address some specific issues of LGUs. And some of the concerns has been, how do you move from a municipality to cityhood, right? Then you have to increase revenue, increase population. So I think in addressing that, it's really a balance of all these different factors, right? Because primary would be, of course, the health and income of the residents there. On the other hand, it's almost like a blank slate, right? It's not yet overdeveloped. So it really starts with, I think it should really start with proper planning and engaging the stakeholders, and bringing in the experts. Sabi nga earlier ni Paulo, diba? If you're gonna have someone design parks, have someone who has the expertise in that aspect. So I think it's really being able to be connected through Livable Cities Challenge, these associations that can bring in all these experts and provide that initial planning advice, because it really starts with I think proper planning. Kaysa yung we'll need to retrofit and redesign and demolish. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I think it's not one-off. Now you have to choose one or the other, but we need to start the right way.
Thank you, Jean. So bring in some experts and get some plans done. Okay, Kathy, can you add to that?
Yes, bringing in the experts, especially I saw one of the questions earlier about the CLUP, or what we call the CLUP in LGUs. Sometimes some LGUs are rather hesitant to bring in a master planner, an environmental planner, or an architect, landscape architect, to bring forth the fruition of the CLUP, of the CLUP. But it's so important because it becomes such a major document in as far as land use and zoning is concerned, or whenever you have a buyer or a developer coming into the picture, you have that dictum already. What is that piece of property meant to be? And it helps to have the experts come on board, and don't be afraid to call on the experts. And once again, just like what Jean was mentioning, the organizations who are around to help. I sit on the board with Jean as our chair in the ULI. Of course, we have the Liveable Cities Challenge. We also have what is called the EROF, the East Asian Regional Organization for Planning and Human Settlements. All of these are present here in the country to assist.
Great. Thank you for that, Kathy. Have a plan, get the experts, get connected with the people who can help. Sir Dinky, can you add to that? Because alam ko maraming experience ito sa mga CLUP sa Pilipinas, no?
Yeah,
what can you add?
Let me say that, you know, there's a short term or immediate response that can be done in so far as increasing the supply of open space. No? But there's also a long term. The short term or the immediate is like what Paulo did in Makati, working on the street, because all our towns and cities have streets. But very often, the streets have been designed to accommodate huge trucks. The lanes are so wide. We don't really need all those lanes to be wide, because when you make lanes very wide, the tendency is for vehicles to go fast. So you can narrow, you can make the moving lanes narrower, therefore you will be gaining additional space for wider sidewalks, and the wider the sidewalks are, the more space you can have for planting trees and for landscaping. So that's the short term. Kasi nando na yung kalye. Now, for the longer term, we need some kind of a law. Because we do have in BP 220 and PD 957, which are the existing standards for subdivisions, that developers need to provide parks and open space. But there is no law about LGUs creating more parks and open space. So the ones that have done it, like Davao, have done it on their own, parang without the necessity of a national law. So, but I think we do need some kind of a national law so that there would be a continuous supply of parks and open space to be provided by the LGU.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sir Dinky. So you eat at it from both ends, no? Yung madali at saka yung longer term, harder stuff, no?
Yeah.
That's good. And then maybe Sir Paulo, Sir Dinky mentioned that you've had some of experience on these. Ano pang, what else can be done to help create more open spaces?
Yes, other than the streets and narrowing the very wide lanes, there are opportunities in towns and cities or less affluent LGUs. You have to do an audit of open space. And if you do that, you will find often that the large undeveloped or open spaces are national government complexes. DPWH always has a huge area in any of the towns and cities I go to. A lot of them just underutilized, or even the PPA. And then the other concept is co-location. The schools have a lot of open space which is not used during the weekends when the kids are not there, but can be used by the citizens because they are not in the same time frame. In fact, in Singapore, educational complexes are open some of them are open in the evenings and weekends to the people around them. So co-location is an aspect of how you can recover space, but the other is really the opportunities in national government offices. Going to Metro Manila, if you look at it from the air, the only large open spaces left are golf courses, military camps, and the National Mental Health Institute.
Mandaluyong.
Mandaluyong. So parks for living people are not around, but for dead people are there for the cemeteries, the military, or the elite playing golf. So we have to. I don't know if we can ban golf courses because if you look at from the air, those are the open spaces. And cemeteries already can be made to share the open space, except that in BGC it's the American battle memorial. And unfortunately, of course, you can go in, but it's not really a public space. So it's really making an audit of your LGU and seeing where the opportunities are, and to get into the partnerships with national government and or provincial government. A lot of the open spaces in capital cities are also provincial. So it's really trying to convince the government not to default into selling government property to the highest bidder, but thinking about housing, hospitals, and open space for all of these lands.
Great. Thank you, Sir Paulo. Maganda yung sinabi mo, you audit space, pati yung not just space, but also time.
Yes.
Okay, that's very good. Mitch, how about you? No? How about Globe and the private sector on this?
Yeah, well, I guess to the question on the how will the more challenged LGUs build their open spaces parks, right? And I think what is important there is really collaboration with the private sector, right? It's really working with the private sector. There's a lot that can be done. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. What needs to happen is really understanding where those spaces are, how can both parties, right, help each other. So it's really collaboration more than anything else in terms of how the private sector can help those challenged LGUs. And we do that with some of especially in those areas where there is a need for, Paulo mentioned about co-location, and we do that in a lot of, because it's a challenge to look for spaces where you put up these huge cell sites, right? Yeah. So Paulo was correct in saying, looking at the government assets where we can co-locate. So whether that's a park, that's a rooftop of a building or of a property, barangay hall, the health centers, those things, even us, we don't have to put up in those large open spaces. We can use government properties already to put it up there and maybe even help them build their parks, right?
Yeah, that's a good point on collaboration.
Yeah.
Sir Bill, how about you? Final words on that to wrap it up.
Well, I just think I like a lot of the ideas. And what this shows is that if we sit down and brainstorm and really be creative, there are ways of recovering and opening up spaces. And I think it's so important. And what I like about it is this shows there's so little discussion going along this front, no? And I think we really need to spend time to be creative and look for these solutions. I actually walk away much more optimistic than when I first walked into this meeting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Alam mo, this is such a healthy and vibrant discussion. Nag-overtime tayo na quite a bit, no? But thank you everybody for being part of the panel. I'd like to ask Jean De Castro to stay with me stay on screen. Jean is the chairperson of the Urban Land Institute and is the CEO of ESCA Incorporated, a Filipino-owned full-service engineering firm that provides engineering design, project management, and building information modeling services to local and foreign clients for more than 35 years. She's also the CEO of ESCA International Incorporated, an engineering outsourcing company that provides high-value outsourcing services to clients abroad. So to formally close today's webinar, I'd like to ask Jean to say something. On to you, Jean.
Thank you. Thanks, Sui. Great discussion with the whole panel.
Yes.
So Winston Churchill famously said, "We shape our buildings, and afterwards our buildings shape us." So with the building sector contributing to nearly 40% of carbon emission globally and being one of the industries with the biggest consumer of materials, it then seems quite grim how buildings will actually shape us, right? Our health, our survival, our planet, and our future. So I lead ESCA, an engineering company, and we've been in the industry for the past 4 decades, and we have seen an uptick in projects aiming for green certification, LEED or Verde, even from government buildings. For the past few years, we have the Philippine Statistics Authority Office Building, Manila Hall of Justice, and the HLURB Office Building. We also have developers, including ULI members, who have made it an advocacy to aim for green, sustainable, LEED certified, and even net zero buildings. However, it is a race against time, right? And it's not a luxury, it's not time, we do not have the luxury of. Risks of rising seas, flooding, severe storms are already causing damage, and not just to individual buildings, but also to entire cities, right? And even with the pandemic, climate change remains a major concern. So we cannot build as we did before, right? Without regard to environmental impact. Simply said, it cannot be business as usual. So ULI's mission is to shape the future of the built environment for transformative impact in communities worldwide. And as I mentioned, it joins the goal of net zero by 2050 and the short-term decarbonization goal by 2030. A building's carbon footprint comes from building materials, its construction, and building operations. Annual construction waste can reach up to 2.2 billion tons globally by 2025, and it is estimated that 30% of the building materials that actually get delivered on site ends up as waste, and 75% of that goes straight to the landfill, right? So what can be done, right? How do we build better? First, we start with really well thought of design and proper planning that integrates the whole project life cycle and even the communities around it. They're having the right consultants who have the shared goal of sustainability and experts who are willing to collaborate and invest the time and effort needed to solve problems and not just look for shortcuts. Second, an open mind and a willingness to do things differently. There are now various sustainable building materials. I know it was a question in the chat, from steel, hempcrete, and other recyclable materials. Mass timber and engineered bamboo are also emerging as more environmentally conscious building material alternatives. Third, embracing suitable technology and making it work for the people. The use of technology such as building information modeling, modular construction, improve efficiency even during construction that can significantly reduce waste. Prop tech opportunities improve energy efficiency during operations, and even digital twins equipping building with sensors allow smart buildings to further optimize energy performance. So that's needed not just for new developments, but also for redevelopment of existing buildings. But one major hurdle that we all hear is that, does it make financial sense, right? Well, ULI data shows that there is an increasing number of institutional investors leaning towards issuing loans and bonds to finance green projects. In 2019, there was around $183.6 billion worth of green bonds issued, that's an increase of 29% from 2018. Green bonds are becoming mainstream, and even sustainability-linked loans are gaining traction. But more than being a return on investment, we also need to change our measures for success, or our KPIs, right? Is it all about the bottom line? But we have to remember this initiative is a matter of saving human lives. And how do we make it inclusive? How do we ensure that not only a privileged few get to enjoy these fancy green buildings? And this is where government and cities play a crucial role, right? Everyone deserves to enjoy the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards. In our discussion on open spaces, we saw how design and even the location of public amenities are critical to better distribute equitably services in the community. Buildings and open spaces can be transformative and have been instrumental in promoting healthy, sustainable, and equitable outcomes in communities. Because we must remember that at the end of it all, we're not building buildings for the sake of saving energy, right? When we talk about green buildings, we build them still for people. So ULI is truly grateful to the Liveable Cities Challenge for continuing to encourage these types of conversations and discussions and bringing together experts and stakeholders. We hope this event has been both eye-opening and informative, and more than that, a strong call to action. So on behalf of Liveable Cities Challenge, I'd like to thank all of our speakers. And before we close, we invite you to answer a feedback form that will appear once you exit the webinar. For those of you on Zoom, the feedback form is now appearing on your screen. And for those watching on Facebook, please take a picture of the QR code to receive the feedback form. Your response will help improve Liveable Cities Lab series. And you may also get a certificate of participation by answering the corresponding survey. Next, the next cities Lab, Liveable Cities Lab, is on Wednesday, so please watch out for that, September 8th, entitled Mobility, Building an E-Vehicle ecosystem. And take note, it's not just about e-vehicles, it talks about the entire ecosystem, right? Please join this discussion on what it takes to make e-vehicles a reality in the Philippines, especially as we go towards more transit-oriented developments. So finally, thank our partners, Liveable Cities Challenge, Urban Land Institute, League of Cities and of the Philippines, and Globe Telecom. So thank you everyone, stay safe and have a good day.
A better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today.
We're following a major story out of the Philippines. A major storm, a super typhoon barrel.
Malubha ang pinsalang dala ng super bagyong Yolanda.
Mistulang dagat na inaanod ang lahat ng madadaanan nito.
It is a miserable situation here, and it does not seem to be getting better day by day.
Destruction, death, catastrophe. Thousands of lives lost, homes gone in hours. These are scenes captured last November 8th, 2013 in eastern, central, and western Visayas, the day the Typhoon Yolanda hit the Philippines, leaving everyone in shock. A number of environmental planners started communicating with each other to begin rescue and emergency efforts. Dr. Nathaniel Voin Einsidal, a former president of the Philippine Institute of Environmental Planners, or PIEP, recommended that the PIEP volunteers' assistance be in the form of expertise of environmental planners in post-disaster rehabilitation and recovery planning. A few days after, a task force was created. In January 13, 2014, the task force adopts the name Alliance for Safe and Sustainable Reconstruction, or ASSURE, whose main purpose was to provide an organizational structure for extending the voluntary technical assistance to the cities and towns affected by Typhoon Yolanda. It is a non-profit organization with membership open not only to environmental planners, but also to other related professionals. Dr. Andreas Lange of the German International Assistance Agency, or GIZ, invited ASSURE to its annual planning workshop in Baybay, Leyte for ASSURE to get a better feel of the extent of damage brought by Yolanda and discuss possible collaboration between GIZ and ASSURE. This partnership grew stronger as their roles became clearer. 16 local government units from Leyte and Eastern Samar, all victims of Yolanda, were invited to participate. After presenting their initial assessment, their requirements surfaced as huge and daunting. These brave volunteers knew they were up for a difficult challenge, but one that was worth it. From then on, ASSURE carried out other prominent projects along with other donor organizations, such as a comprehensive assessment of the post-disaster rehabilitation needs of Homonhon and Manicani Islands, preparation of the Tacloban Recovery and Rehabilitation Plan, technical advice and support to city competition teams for their entries to the Liveable Cities Design Challenge, among others. After various missions and projects, Assure has emerged as one of the major players in the rehabilitation and recovery efforts for cities and towns damaged by Typhoon Yolanda. Assure was born out of the realization that professional assistance to the devastated towns and cities is most critical and urgent. But what may be even more significant is that Assure has served as a channel for volunteer environmental planners, economists, social development experts, architects, engineers, and other related professions to share their time and expertise to help rebuild the lives of Yolanda's victims. Every effort exerted and every time consumed in each project provide fulfilling and exciting memories, all worth 1,000 lives restored. You are part of us. Share our stories.